The fastest way to start getting into the more powerful you position is by knowing yourself and knowing what matters to you, knowing what your values are, like all the things that we're talking about. Oh, this person thinks this thing is cool, or this matters to this person, or this is what this value is to this person. We're not getting lost actually by external values and what matters to other people. We are really having such a strong connection to our own internal values and what matters to us, knowing that it's okay for everyone to have different values. That's what makes this whole world is like so cool and community so great, right? Different strengths and different values, and their those things about themselves changes their trajectory and who they surround themselves with, the communities that they're involved in, the businesses that they create, the environments that they choose to work in, right? Like everyone has a different way of experiencing the world. And if we don't have clarity in who we are, then we're going to constantly be swaying like kind of oceans in a you see these little fish kind of ooh ooh depending on the way where the waves go. And that can feel nice to kind of be in flow and just allow the universe to take us places. But if we're leaning too much on that, then it means that we are losing that sense of groundedness in ourselves to create the trajectory of our own path. And why this matters as a communicator is because if we don't have clarity in who we are, um, then we are constantly, when we're standing in front of a group, that's where we're really going to feel ourselves swaying based on what other people are thinking, what's the energy of the group that we're in, what's the energy of this company. We're constantly like seeking outward, and the inner approval seekers, like, ooh, I feel like I'm not grounded. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I like. I don't know where to go. I don't know anything. And it's going to be constantly grasping outwardly. So the more that we have clarity in ourselves and what we want in this life, who we want to be in this life, who are we? What is our unique magnificence? What is our unique way of seeing the world, and feel really grounded? Then you are going to become more embodied when you're showing up in front of other people, because what people sense is your energetic magnetism, or the lack thereof. And what you want to have is clarity in your why, in like who you are, and that is felt on an energetic level. People can feel it when someone's like knows themselves, even if they're so like imperfect, right? We know that some of our values and who we are is like not like I have all values in mind. I have some values, and there's some values that I wish I had, but I don't have, right? So there's clarity in the self, and that creates confidence, but it's also clarity in what you're not, clarity in who you're not. And knowing that there's someone else that has that, and good for them. And I'm so glad that they're in the world and they can bring that to the table. But that's not what I bring to the table. And that sense is confidence. So, what you're going to be working on is a story about what you profoundly give a damn about in this world. What matters to you? So, initially, you're going to write 5 things that matter to you. You're going to pick something kind of like what led you to realizing that this is something you really care about, a time in your life. And then you can create more times in your life. What are other times that made me realize like this does really matter to me? And then you're going to pick one and tell the story about it. So you're going to create some specificity in this story, like who is involved, where were you, when was it, how did you feel, and how did it change you? Because these things happens, but sometimes we don't like really recall it and let that be a pillar that holds us like rooted in ourselves and like, oh yeah, this really matters. And this experience changes how I show up in my day to day and big and small moments. You're going to start the story mid sentence, mid conversation, start where it's juicy once again. And this is going to be a 5 to 8 presentation. And when I say presentation, it doesn't have to have slides. It could literally just be you talking. You could have art pieces you create. You could sing it out loud. Like literally anything goes. Let your creativity fly. This is your playground for you to play and share in a way that like kind of stretches you and feels kind of fun for you to try out. Um, and really just connect with like what you're saying. That's really what matters. Are you connected to this? So I'm going to share a little bit of an example for me. Like 5 things that I give a profound damn about is loving yourself, simplifying your life, following my inner compass, embracing fear, and having creative freedom. So I picked something from above, which was simplifying my life, and thought about like what happened in my life that made me really care about this. And something that really made me care about this is um, about 8 months ago. My dad was, I was out to lunch with my dad. I took him out for his birthday and I got him a gift. And this is the first time we have hung out in like a father-daughter situation in 5 years because he has been on the streets and is a meth user. And so like it was my first kind of father-daughter day in a very, very long time since I was little. And I was really like looking forward to it. And we go outside and have for him to have a cigarette, and he's looking out at McDonald's, and he starts to tell a story about how the manager kicked him out of being in the parking lot, was like really trying to get him to leave living in the parking lot McDonald's. And my dad was like, yeah, I'll leave if you give me a large milkshake. And I was kind of like horrified by the story, like, oh my God, how humiliating. And like, I don't, how humiliating to be kicked out of McDonald's and just like feeling like uncomfortable. But when he's telling the story, he's like laughing about it and looks like he's like thinking so fondly of this experience. And I'm like, do you miss being homeless? I asked him. And he was like, yeah. I'm like, why? And he had been like out of the streets for at this point like 4 months or something. And he's like, well, I didn't have bills. I didn't have to worry about bills. And my dad is a constant worrier, has like constant anxiety. And like I feel a lot of anxiety too, very regularly, all the time. It's a part of my life. And for the first time, like I really just understood like what he meant. I really understood it. Like, yeah, it does sound nice to not have bills. And when he's on meth, like he only has one worry, like, how do I get more meth? It's very simple. One thing. How do I get more meth today? And I understood like the simplicity of that, like the joy in simplicity and how we really overcomplicate life and make it really hard for ourselves, like more bills, more expenses. We need to keep up with other people. When I'm doing my business, I need to think about 30 different things at the same time. We really overcomplicate it, and it's really hard for the soul and the mind because it's like hard for us to feel like we can just access joy and peace and love in our life like regularly when we're constantly worrying about what we got to do next, like all these different things we have to do to keep up in our life. And so this helped me realize that like I don't want to go down the path of needing to be homeless and bribing people with shakes and stuff. Like I don't want to go down that path. I see the path of like living in anxiety and stress. And my dad had a mortgage he couldn't afford, and he was like couldn't live his life like he wanted. He wanted to be gay and out and enjoying his life, and he couldn't do all these things. He really had such a life that was like very repressed. And I'm like, okay, I see what that's like, and I don't want to live that life. Like I want to live a life of simplicity and freedom. And this changes how I go about my day to day, right? Like When my husband's like, "Oh my God, I lost my job. I have too many bills going on right now. I don't know. Like maybe you should get a real job, Elise." I'm like, no. Instead, what we found out, we realized we're gonna go move to Mexico and we're gonna reduce our expenses and we're gonna have someone like take over our mortgage. Like, I will go the path of like making things simple for ourselves, making things feel light. I will always choose that versus like, no, now I have to go get a job and I have to make a ton of money so that we can pay for our big LA lifestyle. Hell no. Like, I'm not going down that route. I'm simplifying my life. And so this is how I live my life. And then also this shows up in the DNA of my business and in the day of how in the DNA of how I communicate. You probably, even in some of my one-to-ones, you'll see I'll ask you to simplify things, or I'll ask you to simplify maybe what you're sharing, or I'll think about how do I make you feel more light and at ease and liberated in yourself versus feeling more overwhelmed by all the things that you should be doing to make yourself a better communicator, a better speaker, right? I simplify things, right? Everything I do has this DNA. And the more that we can show up in all these different ways with a through line of who we are based on life experiences that really fucking matter to us, we can show up with a sense of inner confidence, even though sometimes it gets swayed by what other people are doing. Of course, I do. Of course, like, I am like, oh, what that person's doing is super cool. And oh my God, all those videos this person's doing and like how they talk and the way they do things, like, of course I get swayed by that, but I constantly have to remind myself of who I am and what matters to me and why. And this is why we're going to be getting into this. And this is what creates your own internal power for how you show up and to come on stage or speak in groups with a presence that feels powerful because it's a knowing of the self. So this is your assignment for the week. And I'm excited to see your presentations. Bye.